Hello, and welcome to a More Perfect podcast. I'm here with my second guest. Her name is Lauren, and she's traveled to get here, and she is a hard Democrat. She is as Democrat as I am Republican. This is the episode where she explains her beliefs and where she goes into current issues and where you guys get another perspective on world events, Cheeto Man, and foreign affairs in general. So, Lauren, so the Democratic debates happened.
Yes, they did.
So you have like 20 candidates all vying for the Democratic nomination to fight the racist in chief. Okay, like let's get them, boys. So what candidates do you support? Or what is your favorite candidate?
Right now, I support almost all of them in general, just because not a big fan of our current president.
Okay.
I am not the biggest Biden supporter, to be honest.
Really? Why?
Yeah, I used to be because of how much I loved, Obama's presidency and just Joe Biden in general.
Mm-hmm.
And
Joe, as Shapiro says.
But now I feel like he's almost, this is gonna sound bad,
Say it.
he's too centrist, to be honest. I personally don't think that we can fight Trump with a centrist. I don't think that that's going to work at all. I think, fight fire with fire, if for a lack of better terms. So I think that Sanders right now is probably my top choice.
Bernie Sanders, you're a Bernie bro.
I am.
So
I have been since 2016. Yeah.
2016, that's awesome. That's just, it's great.
Yeah.
What about Bernie is appealing to you?
All right.
Top three things that are appealing to you about Bernie Sanders.
Top three things. I like Medicare for all and free college tuition. I really do. I think it's a really good idea. One thing I love about Bernie Sanders is his continuity. He has not changed since he was 17 years old. His beliefs have not changed. He's been the most consistent candidate out of anyone else in the race by far. And I love that about him because he is, very focused on what he believes in, and he doesn't waver in that.
Mm-hmm. So he now is proposing Medicare for all. That's his big thing. You said you like Medicare for all.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you like it? What about it is appealing to you?
Okay, well, right now,
healthcare
is a human right.
Okay.
Absolutely, 100%. And there are people like my friend's father, for example, he has way too many medical conditions that for someone his age to bear, and it's very difficult for her entire family. But what makes it so difficult is the cost, because his family, my friend's family, they can't afford for her father to have all these conditions. They literally cannot afford for him to be sick, which I think is just the craziest concept to me, to just not be able to afford medical bills to keep you alive. And everything that I've seen that family go through because of that has kind of forced me to have these beliefs. I can't sit around and watch something like this happen and be okay with it and not want to do something about it. And I think that Bernie's Medicare for All plan would help people like her and her father and that position that they're in, because right now the current system that we have is broken. I do believe that full-heartedly.
Okay, how is it broken?
Well, okay. Is it okay if I pull up some stats here?
Definitely.
So insulin prices. We've heard a lot about this, right? I'm sure you have.
I have a friend that's diabetic.
Right, and
very important.
My
grandmother's diabetic.
My grandfather was diabetic.
Yeah, what do you know? It's a big problem.
Insulin is manufactured for $6 in Canada and in the United States.
Oh, yes.
I've
seen these.
You have seen it. And insulin costs $32 in Canada, and it costs $300 here. And for something to be that expensive that you need is... a
crime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you think giving Medicare to everyone would solve that problem?
Yes, I do. I feel like it would take a huge burden off of... I'm going to rewind a little bit.
Okay.
I believe that the system that we have is broken.
All right.
Because right now, people cannot survive if they're poor. America is allowing people to die because of their economic status. And you cannot afford to get sick. You cannot afford to have any sort of medical condition if you are poor, if you are lower class. You will literally, people have died because they cannot afford their medical bills. And that's something that needs to completely change. And I haven't seen any other candidate, really push for something that changes that.
Okay. So I have a clip right here of a thing that Bernie said about his Medicare for All plan. Mm-hmm. He was asked it directly. I had this clip in the first episode, but I'll air it again.
Senator Sanders, I'll give you 10 seconds just to answer the very direct question. Will you raise taxes for the middle class in a Sanders administration?
People who have health care under Medicare for All will have no premiums, no deductibles, no co-payments, no out-of-pocket expenses. Yes, they will pay more in taxes, but less in health care.
So that clip, it shows Bernie Sanders, obviously, and he's saying that we're going to have to raise taxes on the middle class to pay for this Medicare for All plan. Right. So it's not free, obviously. Nothing's free.
No, nothing's free.
Yeah, so raising taxes, you think people, if they can't afford their premiums, their deductibles, how can they afford to pay more taxes?
Well, he's also proposed the minimum wage being raised to $15 an hour, which is, of course, going to be helpful to people who cannot afford to pay those taxes because, right now, people can't afford their bills in general, like I've stated. They can't afford...
Yes.
Anything.
Yeah. Average American people, they couldn't survive an emergency lasting more than 3 days. They don't have those savings. It's a crisis.
It's a huge problem in America.
Yeah.
Especially. It's a huge problem everywhere. Not everywhere. First world countries. But especially in America, you see people trying so hard to buy the most expensive thing that they can to look better, to protect their image. And I think, that image has become more important than things that, like your health and like your education. And I think that's a serious rising problem in America.
Yeah. And the thing is, there's only they can change their mind by reading, because if something like a medical condition changes their mind, they might not have a mind the next day. Right. It's that critical.
Right, it is, absolutely.
So it's how we spend our money. So higher taxes. He wants to raise taxes on the middle class.
I do want to reiterate that although taxes would raise for the middle class, it would a majority be for the upper 1%. That's what he's been pushing his entire campaign, 2016 campaign, 2020 campaign. He's been pushing the upper 1% is going to be taxed more than anybody else. I don't believe that middle class taxes would raise drastically. I don't know. I haven't really dove into his numbers and his plan specifically, but I do know that he has said on multiple occasions that the upper 1% is they are the people who are really going to be taxed. Their money is really going to be going towards the poor and being able to afford their medical expenses and their medical bills. And when you have that on top of a livable minimum wage
of $15 per hour,
and we did talk about this earlier in terms of small businesses and not being able to afford it, and I do agree that it becomes an issue and it becomes a bit of a gray area for me, even with the whole $15 an hour minimum wage. But I do believe that minimum wage does need to be raised, and I think it should be more a state by state basis. And I think larger corporations should have different standards and be held up to a different minimum wage than small businesses, and I think there needs to be a system for it. I think that's where Bernie Sanders goes a little wrong, is, having a national, minimum wage, $15 an hour. I think it's going to be, even for small businesses, I think it is going to be problematic. But in terms of, how are people going to be able to afford these taxes? Like I said, it's really not going to be as much of a burden for the middle class. Hopefully, that's what I'm hoping for. I think that's, definitely what Bernie Sanders has been pushing, and I do believe that he has lived up to his word in terms of, when he says he's going to vote one way, he does. When he says he believes one thing, he does. So I do trust his word, and
Which is nice. It's so nice to trust politicians' word.
It's very nice. It really is.
Can we even call Bernie a politician? I mean, he stays consistent on his issues.
He stays so consistent, and it's really refreshing. I could say it is. It's refreshing to have a politician who does keep his promises.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I believe in terms of affording the taxes and affording health care, I think he does have the right idea. I think there are some things that could be improved, and there are some things that need work, and I don't have all the answers, but I believe that he is on the right track, and I do believe that he has the right ideas that can get us.
So, basically, to reiterate what you're saying, you tell me if I'm right. You believe in divisions among businesses to institute this $15 per hour minimum tax. So,
and I do believe that it should be a state-by-state level thing too, because different states have different general incomes, and everything varies state by state.
It's the conservative in you coming out. You believe you like state government.
It's the moderate in me. It's the logic in me that says you can't. Yeah, I believe that it would be problematic to make a minimum wage for every single state, every single business. I think it would be a little bit of a disaster, to be honest.
Disaster, yeah. So small businesses, state by state basis. I love that.
Yes.
It's the little bit of conservatism in me that's remaining. Okay. So the big corporations, Amazon, Walmart, they need $15 per hour because in your mind they can afford it. The smaller businesses can't. It would put them out of business. Like that's just economics. You agree with that, right? It would put the small business out of business.
Right. And I mean, right now, I'm working at a brand new small business, and they are paying me $10 an hour. And it's working. And we haven't gotten much business, but as long as we can keep the company alive, they have been able to afford to pay their workers $10 an hour. And I think that is a good minimum wage for small businesses.
I'm sure you like it.
I love it. I think it's great. And and I wish that, other small companies would do the same, because most of them can afford to do so. And I feel like if you can't, then that's just kind of bad investing. I feel like you haven't put enough into your business if you can't afford to pay your workers enough for them to live comfortably,
So would you say the same about these mom and pop shops? I mean, these let's just go. These immigrants that come over here, form these Italian pizza shops, make their living, build themselves up on these Italian pizza shops. The American dream.
Right.
Put everything into their businesses, but they just don't make enough to get $15 per hour.
Well, that's why the $15 an hour is a little bit problematic. That's as I've stated, I don't know that would be the most perfect solution. And I have seen a lot of debates on it too, with multiple different politicians talking about how it just wouldn't work. And I'm, not.
There's many different colors to your opinion. It's
yeah. I think I feel like a big mistake that I used to make when I first started getting involved in politics was I used to believe everything was very black and white. And
yeah, me too.
I've been a little bit more open and done a little bit more research, and I do believe that there are gray areas, and not every policy is perfect, and not every candidate that I like I agree with on every single level, and that's just going to be the way it is. And when I was first getting involved in politics, if I liked a candidate, I had to like everything. And so I would defend things, that they would propose, even without really knowing, what that meant. And that was because I thought that it had to be, one way and it couldn't be anything else. Right, exactly. Yeah. And that's a huge mistake that a lot of people make, especially when, things like, the 2016 election was huge and people got really heated and really involved. And very quickly too, which was another mistake I made, is I jumped right into that scene without really knowing.
In 2016?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the 2016 election, I got very involved. That was the start of my political involvement.
Was 2016?
2016,
election.
Yes.
So who'd you support back then?
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders.
Bernie Sanders back then, Bernie Sanders now.
So how'd you feel about Hillary?
I, to this day, believe that she would have been better for America than Trump is at the moment.
Yeah.
And I can see you cringing.
Yeah, I really am. I totally don't believe it.
But, I do not agree with anything that
Trump does
or says or believes in. And, Hillary wasn't perfect, but I did agree with a lot of what she had to say. Honestly, if I could vote in the 2016 election, I would have written Bernie Sanders in.
Yeah. I'll bet a lot of people did.
I'm sure a lot of people wrote Harambe and people did everything.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember that? That was a huge thing. That was a huge thing. Oh, God, that was so stupid.
2016 was the worst year.
It really was.
It was
just idiotic.
Man. People try and black that year out. Like, people were cheering when it was over.
Oh my gosh.
That bad for everyone. It was amazing. It was almost like a phenomenon.
I think 2018 was a horrible year for people in general. Not politics, but just everybody hated 2018.
Really?
Yeah. 2016 was a really good year for me, personally. Anyway, back to politics. Reiterating my stance on the state-by-state level, the difference between big corporations and small business owners, it all comes down to, for me, it comes down to the wealth disparity in America. And that's why I believe what I believe, is because of the growing...
The gap.
Insane gap between, the upper 1% and...
The bourgeoisie. Let's just say it.
for real, yeah. If we're being honest. And the poor. And I think I know it never used to be like that before. A statistic that I heard a long time ago and that I have looked into and it holds true is that when my grandfather was working, and he worked for Nabisco. The cookie, yeah.
Yes, I love those cookies.
He worked for Nabisco, and during that time, the CEO of a company, on average, was making 4 times as much as their average employee.
Okay.
Which makes perfect sense,
it does.
But now, in 2019, they're making more than 400 times as much as their average employee. And so that's where the issue comes in for me when people say, well, they worked for it. They worked for it back then, too. People were working for the money people have always been working for the money that they make. But that doesn't mean that the wealth disparity in America is okay.
It's justified.
Right.
Okay. So you believe the $15 per hour minimum wage principally because of this wealth gap?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's why I think it comes down to a state-by-state basis. That's why I think there's a difference between big corporations and small business. That's all the beliefs that I have in terms of economics. It all comes down to the wealth disparity for me.
Okay. I would like to clarify. We talked earlier about businesses and how I said, oh, well, they're going to go out of business because Bernie Sanders is an evil tax-raising man on the middle class. I was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Income tax. That's income tax. He said we're going to raise taxes on the middle class. He did not say we're going to raise income taxes, but he didn't specify what kind of tax he's going to raise.
Mm-hmm.
You don't support Joe Biden because you think he's too moderate to take on Trump.
Moderate. And honestly, he seems wishy-washy in his ideals. That's another thing. I said I love the continuity in Sanders. It's the complete opposite with Biden. He's a little sneaky, with the way he works things. And he says that he believes one thing, and then you look at his voting records, and he doesn't vote the way he says he does a lot of the time. And there are a lot of things that are a little bit sketchy about him, and I just don't I don't believe that he's the person
You've done your research.
to get the job done. I have.
Yes.
I have done a bit of research.
You're very. It's very refreshing. So this is moving on
Okay.
from the Democratic base.
Right.
So my second question:
All right.
the culture in 2016, it tore us apart as a nation from the fibers of what liberty means, what the Statue of Liberty meant to the world.
Right.
The ideals our nation was founded on tore us apart. A lot of cultural stuff. So the culture in America, we're in a cultural civil war right now. Okay?
Absolutely. Oh God, it's awful.
It's terrible, okay? And the left is winning. They've been winning for a long time. They won, in my opinion, okay? We lost.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I
Look at
think
Netflix.
that's a safe. Well, look
It's
at God,
anything.
Anything.
Like, just during Pride Month, every
social media network.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, businesses were
Rainbow everything.
Rainbow everything, which becomes a problem too. But that's a completely different topic.
Yeah, and just
another
just to
day.
be clear, this isn't like homophobia or anything. We were just pointing out the simple fact: these businesses put rainbows on their signs.
Oh, yeah.
That is left leaning because the right conservatives
They tend to
disagree
Right.
with being gay and gay marriage and all that stuff. So I would call it left. And a lot of cultural stuff is happening against it. So this cultural civil war, when do you think it'll end? How do you think it'll end?
Gosh, that's tough. Honestly, I have no idea when it will end. I think it's near, to be honest.
You think we're reaching a breaking point?
I think things have been changing for a long time, and I think 2016 kind of exploded.
It was kind of like the catalyst in this little scientific equation.
It absolutely was, and
yeah.
I believe that it will end with the more leftist cultural views. I believe that, this is going to sound bad. I believe that if we culturally turn to a more right-leaning conservative culture, I believe that we're regressing. I believe that we're going back in time, and I don't think that America is heading that direction right now.
Okay, so I don't know very much about it. I don't watch the show. There's a show called Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, I've heard about it.
Yeah,
I have heard of that.
Is that kind of what you're talking about? Like the few things that I know about it is this cultural cultist group. It's like a radical Mormon. They take over the United States. So like the Mormons take over the United States. Man, that'll be a soundbite one day.
The Mormons take over the United States.
Yeah, it's especially bad because I have friends that are Mormon and now they're gonna hate me. But whatever. I said what I said.
They'll live.
Yeah, they'll live. And they start like subjugating women to all these things like get back in the kitchen.
Yes.
And the women start wearing these hoods, and then the women take over the government with their red hoods. That's all I know.
Okay.
Yeah, it's Handmaid's Tale by Dylan.
Not heard much about it, but yeah.
You think that? Of course, that's a way
That's very extreme. I was gonna say, I was like, I don't know about that, but
what right-wing ideals are? So going back to church, you think we're regressing if we go back to church?
No. I don't believe. This is tricky. For me personally, all right, we're about to get real.
Do it.
For me personally, religion. I don't know if I can say this.
Say it.
I believe that.
The other political podcasts weren't perfect. They were afraid to say stuff. We aren't.
Okay. All right. Okay. I believe that religion is more than flawed. I believe that religion goes so far back in time.
Okay.
Ancient Greek mythology, that was religion. People lived by that. And I believe that Christianity is the exact same thing. I don't think there's a difference at all. And I do believe that in the future, it will be seen the exact same way. And I think that science is taking over. And I think that people are starting to see, the very drastic difference between...
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say you're an atheist.
I am agnostic.
Agnostic. Okay.
So
are most of my friends.
For those of you who are listening who don't know what agnosticism is,
Do explain.
I shall. I believe that something could be out there. I believe that a higher power is extremely possible. In fact, I do believe in a higher power. I do not believe in God. I do not believe in God the way Christians see God. I don't believe in God the way Jews see God. I don't believe in God in general, but I do believe that a higher power exists. I just also happen to believe in science and everything that science has said, and every, evolution, all of the Big Bang Theory, all of the things that science has come to prove.
Yeah.
I believe all of those things to be absolutely true, and I believe that
You think
a higher power could be involved in that.
but you don't
But-
think we shouldn't go to church.
I don't think that you shouldn't go to church. I don't think that you should go to Westboro Baptist Church,
Obviously
but I
not. I mean, you can't call them really a church. You can call them a
No.
hate cult.
Yeah, you that's
They're
more like
trash of the earth right there.
Right.
They need to be smitten.
No, have you seen Kingsman, right?
Kingsman, nope. Wait, is that the British James Bond?
Yes.
I saw part of it.
Yes, it is.
Man, the
There's
fight scenes that are
I think it's in the second one where maybe it's the first one. There are two.
okay.
There might be more.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry for all you fans out there who are
Like
like,
the
there's
Kingsman?
5, and I'm like, I don't know.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
But there is a scene where, gosh, I wish I knew which one. No, it was the first one because I haven't seen the second one.
Okay.
God, duh. So the bad guy or whatever in the movie wants to wipe out a majority of Earth's population and like start over, and it's a whole genocide thing.
Okay, that sounds like Avengers, but let's go on.
But he starts with a church that is based on Westboro Baptist Church.
Okay.
But the good guys are like fighting it, and they're like, no, like don't kill these people. And I'm like, wow, you're an idiot.
Wow, you're an idiot.
Like the good guys are idiots. And everybody in the church ends up dying, I believe, if I'm remembering it correctly.
Of course.
But
It's Hollywood.
why would you fight against that? Like, I'm sorry, but if there was someone who was trying to wipe out the people that go to Westboro Baptist Church, I'd be all for it as a good guy. I'd be like, yeah, like absolutely, let's do this. God, this is so bad. This is gonna be a soundbite one day.
This is gonna be a soundbite.
But no, yeah, I believe those people are absolutely the face of evil.
I can't call them a church.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. But yeah, that was a scene.
So I think that we left church as a nation.
Mm-hmm.
We started opening on Sundays. We started doing all these things, and we lost those common morals. We lost those common beliefs that bound us together because we're a nation under God. We were the founders believed in God.
Yeah, One Nation Under God didn't actually come up until the 60s, by the way.
Yeah. You really?
Yeah, I believe it was the 60s. I might be a little off on my decade there. But yeah, One Nation Under God, Indivisible. It was always One Nation, Indivisible. Well, Under God was put in, gosh, I do believe it was the 60s.
Okay.
To spot commies.
Really?
Yes.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah.
My history teacher told me that. I forgot.
Yeah, that's that was a thing, and I believe full-heartedly that should be taken back out. I don't believe that when we stand for the pledge that we should be
really?
saying under God, because America was
You believe in separation of church
I believe
and state?
in separation of church and state, and I believe that nobody should have to say under God if they don't believe in God, and I don't believe that it should be something that every school is reciting, because that's not what America is. In my personal opinion, that's not what America is. And I know some people think that it is, and I know that some people think that, America is Christian, and I know that people think that, America has everything to do with
There's
God.
another soundbite one day.
But no, I don't believe that, and I do believe that under God should be taken out of the Pledge of Allegiance, because it was never there to begin with, and it shouldn't be there now.
All right, you can believe that. So culture. So you mentioned way earlier. So this is my third question. We have the most divisive president in American history. I would say, maybe with the exception of Abraham Lincoln, because Abraham Lincoln was like, dog, what about two nations?
Well, not quite.
Yeah, not quite.
No,
that was actually the exact opposite of what he said. But
actually,
two literal nations formed out of him. Okay?
Right.
I don't think you can get more divisive than that.
No, yeah. Well, it's funny because he was willing to do anything to keep the Union together. He was willing. There's a quote somewhere out there where he says, "If I could free all the slaves to keep the Union together, I would. And if I could make every if I could make every black person," I think he used a different word, but if he said if you had to make every black person a slave to keep the Union together, he would.
He did say that.
Yeah, that's a quote that not many people know of by him.
Yeah, he was willing to do that.
He was willing to do a lot of things, and the only thing he wanted was to keep the Union together, which obviously did not work at all whatsoever. So yeah, he was very divisive, even though he tried very hard not to be. His main goal was not to be, which is really interesting because to compare that to our current president is a very interesting
well, I was just
dynamic.
saying.
No, I'm not saying that you're comparing the two of them as in terms of ideal. But in terms of, their divisiveness. But it is interesting to look at and look at the difference there.
Yeah. So should we say second most divisive then? Second most divisive. Okay.
Oh, I don't know. I'd still say he's the word.
How about this? a really divisive president.
Right.
Got 50-50. Okay. Nations pitted against each other. Why do you hate him? You said you can't agree with anything that he does.
Yeah, no.
So let's just take it block by block.
Okay.
Let's take immigration. The wall. Why do you hate the wall?
Why do I hate the wall? A wall,
or you
first
can really
of all,
blow my mind and say you don't hate the wall, and then,
No, hate is a strong word. I do not agree with the wall at all. I first of all, not effective at all whatsoever. It's costing us, this whole Mexico will pay for it, crap. Just did not work out. And now to ask us to pay for a wall that will not be effective, and I do believe that he wanted... We, as a nation, are not supposed to be building walls. That's not what, being American is about. It's not about building walls. It's about taking them down, if anything. Borders are imaginary lines for a reason. I do believe that. Absolutely, full-heartedly. I can see the look on your face.
Yeah.
No,
Unfortunately, this I didn't mean for this to be a debate, so I'm not going to start going after what you say. I just want you to explain yourself. But so please go on.
First of all, I don't think it'll be effective at all. I think there are better ways to go about it. It's not even the wall that I have the biggest issue with.
The biggest issue. Okay.
The biggest issue is things that have been happening at the border as of late.
Okay.
The
last episode we covered that.
Yeah.
We have they think reports have said otherwise, but reports obviously. I mean, because the news is a Democratic pawn, except for Fox.
Which is a Republican pawn.
You
know they've admitted to not being news before, right?
Fox?
Yes.
Yeah, of course they have opinion shows where it's just meant for entertainment. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
So does CNN. But CNN's basically entertainment because they're not news anymore, but let's just not go into that.
Nor is Fox, but that's okay.
Okay. So, see, there's division right there, people. Well, you have these reports. So children sleeping in their own poop. You got children sleeping on blankets, people under bridges. I've seen the images. Children in cages is the big trigger point.
That's a big trigger point. Honestly, something really interesting to me is there was a report on several women who had miscarriages.
Do tell.
Due to a lack of care at the border. And I think it's kind of ironic because the people who support everything going on at the border right now are the people who don't believe in abortion, which I didn't think we were going to get into. But for
say whatever you believe.
For miscarriages to be happening due to a lack of care and due to everything that's been going on is just completely not only ironic, it's sad. It's absolutely horrifying. I cannot believe that it's happening.
It's horrifying. Okay.
I don't agree with a single thing happening at the border right now.
So you don't agree with it because in your vision it's inhumane, it's terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reports you've seen are terrible. So another thing, you got family separations.
Mm-hmm.
You get these families from across the border. They need help. They're being shot at by these gangs in Mexico. Okay, like pop, give me your children. Okay, like it's not even funny.
It's awful.
It's terrible. Running, asylum, give us asylum, screaming. It's a crisis. It's funny how it wasn't a crisis like a few months ago, but now it's a crisis. He's tearing them apart because of the Flores settlement. The Flores settlement, it was the Supreme Court case, and it said, oh man, I hope I'm not wrong about this. I'm just gonna cross my fingers. Where adults taken into federal custody cannot remain with their children. The children are taken away, put in facilities. The adults are tried.
Mm-hmm.
So Trump is like, Obama built the cages. Obama started the family separations.
But he's not doing anything about it at the exact same time.
Well, I thought Trump stopped the family separations.
Not as far as I know. I mean, that's something to look into.
Okay.
But the family separation wasn't even the biggest.
Actually, I do know he stopped it and then got angry and then resumed it.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, isn't this
beautiful?
wonderful?
We love a trigger-happy president.
It's... well, and then they might have stopped it again. I don't know. But it definitely happened. But here's the thing. Oh, so you're gonna look it up on your phone?
I'm gonna look into. There's something that I do want to look into just to make sure I have my facts right.
Okay. Well, while you do that, there was this amazing thing I found out because I was looking into it because I just had this gut feeling. I was like, Trump's right. Trump is right. I know that. I just knew it. Well, he's not right, but he is right. So what Obama would do was these illegal immigrants would come over and it was catch and release. They catch the families, they release them into the public. Then they would find the adults. The adults would have had children in the United States. The illegal immigrants would have children in the United States. And he would take the adults, or he would take the adults away from the children, separating the families, and sending the parents back to Mexico, ripping the children away from the families. Mm-hmm. He would do that. It took me a long time to find those reports because I knew that it would be censored now by Google and all that. It took me a long time. I had to read articles from 2014 because I knew, surely if it was published from 2014, it would tell what was happening then. Mm-hmm. But he did that. So he did technically, he had a policy of family separation. Mm-hmm. So yes, Trump is technically correct, but it's sort of not the same deal, but it kind of is the same deal because it's dealing with the illegal immigrants. But that's not something that a lot of people know because that's just not something that people talk about. With Obama, they also don't talk about how he deported 3 million versus Trump's 250,000 as of today, as of late. You were talking about the border. You were talking about the children in cages. Did you find anything yet, or?
No, there was one thing that I was looking for that really caught my eye and shocked me, and I'm looking for exactly what that was.
Do you remember basically what it said? We don't have to have an exact website.
Yeah, I do remember. This is the article that I saw.
Okay.
So I'm not sure. Yeah. So what's going on right now is apparently Trump is forcing migrants to pay $800 to have a DNA test.
What?
To make sure that the kids that come with the parents to the border are actually their kids, because there has been word of,
human trafficking.
using
That's really
children.
That's really smart.
Except it's not, because you should perform the DNA test without forcing you. So you're separating children from their families and then forcing the adults to pay $800 to get their kids back is essentially what's happening, which is awful. It's beyond inhumane.
Would you rather the humans be trafficked?
No, absolutely not. That's why I'm saying DNA
would
tests.
Would you rather us pay for criminals?
No, that's not. But that's not what I'm saying. Is that to force parents to pay $800 to have their kids back, rather than just perform the DNA test? It really doesn't cost much to do that without forcing parents to pay $800 that they probably didn't even come to the border with. So now they're not going to see their children. It just doesn't make sense, It makes sense if you want to stop human trafficking. I mean, to me, if you want to... It's the money aspect that's really the problem. You're going to force parents to pay $800 to get their kids back.
In my opinion, it's justified. You broke the law. You're under our jurisdiction now.
Right, but what if they don't have that kind of money?
If they don't have the money, then why the heck did you break the law?
Because you said it yourself. People are fleeing horrible, horrible situations.
Okay.
Right, and seeking asylum is not breaking the law, by the way.
Oh yeah, well I was talking about people coming. Okay, so if we're talking about people seeking asylum, so he's charging $800 for the people seeking asylum. I thought he was charging $800 for people. I was talking about if you breach the border not at a port of entry, and that's literally breaking the law.
Right.
Then why should we pay for you to get, or why shouldn't we make you? Why shouldn't we fine you, make you get a DNA test, find the humans being trafficked, take those humans away, get them back, and then deport you? Right.
Human trafficking is a huge issue, and I'm not going to deny that.
But
it becomes a problem when there are real families that do not have the money to pay for a DNA test.
And when they go through the ports of entry and they apply for asylum, so they technically didn't break the law.
Right. I mean, I'm not exactly sure what that boils down to. Like I said, I couldn't find the article that I know that I read before. But even, let's say that they didn't come through a port of entry, and let's say that they were caught at the border doing something very illegal,
like human trafficking or drug smuggling, or a lot of it.
I mean, even if they weren't doing those things, though, I mean, there are people genuinely just trying to flee to the United States. Those are the people that, I have a huge issue with the whole border thing for a lot of reasons, and
yeah. It's okay. So I just have one more question for you. It's yes or no, but knowing how detailed you are in your answers probably will never be a yes or no question.
I'll
Do you think people crossing the border should be a crime?
Ooh, this is tough.
Do you believe in the southern border? Do you believe in borders? I
don't believe in borders in general. So a short answer would be no. I don't think it should be a crime. But then it comes down to a lot of different problematic areas, gray areas, as I've talked about before, which makes it really difficult to give a solid yes or no answer. But if, boiling it down to...
in general, you don't think it should be a crime to cross the border?
Right.
Okay.
So let's go back to this whole culture thing. I feel like we've really grazed over that, and I feel like that's a really good topic.
Okay, so this culture thing. What about leftist culture? So in your give me a definition of leftist culture.
Oh, that's tough. A definition?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, when you take political tests, right, and you see your political spectrum.
I've taken them.
When it talks about the more cultural aspects, it talks about traditional versus progressive, right?
Yeah.
So I think progressive is the biggest. I think that's a one-word, description of leftist, quote unquote culture. But.
Yeah. Go on.
But there are aspects of it that I don't agree with. Actually, huge aspects of it that I don't agree with. I feel like people have gotten really.
If you had to define it, I'm asking if you had to define.
Ooh, that's tough.
Well, I'm asking you. I mean, like, there's a reason I'm asking you, because I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe you can build upon what I say. So,
Okay.
I would define it as anti-man, anti-male empowerment, anti-borders, free thinking, quote unquote, and silencing anything you don't believe with. Can you build upon any of that?
Oh, absolutely. The whole anti-man thing, I think, is kind of hilarious, because if you look into feminism,
Radical feminism is the anti-man thing. Yeah.
radical feminism isn't feminism. That's the problem that I have, is when people say radical feminism, because at that point you can call yourself a feminist and be radical, but you're not a feminist when it comes down to the definition, and when it comes down to what feminism is.
Sure.
If you call yourself a radical feminist, you're probably not a feminist at all. And I think leftist culture, in terms of what we're speaking of right now, is not anti-man at all. In fact, I follow a lot of feminist Instagram pages, and it is a lot about empowering men, and empowering men to be able to express themselves in ways that culture hasn't allowed them to before, in terms of being sensitive and being vulnerable and being human. And a lot of things about, culture in America in the past has been, men have to be tough, and men can't cry, like men can't like the color pink. There are a lot of restrictions on what men can and cannot do. That feminism is trying to break those barriers and say men can be sensitive, and the whole thing is choice. I think that's the biggest thing about leftist culture is choice. And if you're a man and you want to
that's great.
Be tough, and you want to, if you don't like expressing your emotions, that's your choice, and that's totally okay. And it comes down to...
But that's not the leftist culture that I see. What I see is feminists shutting that kind of thing down. Oh, well, if you're manspreading, like I happen to be right now, if you're manspreading, then that's evil.
Dog, I manspread.
But it's these stupid things like that.
I know, I can see where you're coming from, but I think there are radicals on both sides. I know there are radicals on both sides. Everybody knows that. That's very clear. But if we're talking general, if we're talking leftist culture as a general blanket statement, and not going to the radical side, and I genuinely believe that what you see is what you choose to see. And I'm the same way, where I see
Republicans
culture
as Bible following bimbos.
Right.
Yeah.
I see that side of it too. I see the radical side of it as well. But I'm sure that there is a more moderate side to it. And the Instagram pages that I follow that are Republican scare me, because they are so radical.
Of course they do. You're not Republican.
And it's honestly horrifying to me to see, the way people think. I think if you really look at it in a more moderate light, and what it's really supposed to be, and what I believe in, and I know you say I'm as far left. Honestly, I am as far left as you are right, but I don't think either of us are that far. I think we are opinionated, but I don't think we're as far as we think we are.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. We're opinionated, but in reality, we aren't that far apart.
Right.
But since we're
beautiful.
rock solid in our beliefs,
it does appear that way.
Wow. That could be the answer to everything. That could be the answer everybody's been looking for. Like, how do we solve this? How do we solve this? Look at it.
Yeah.
You have to look at it.
Yeah.
Look at your neighbor. Are you really that far apart when you get down to it, like we are? Are you really that far apart?
Yeah, absolutely. And
do you really stand behind the things, or are they really close together and you were just blind?
Right. And I think taking out radicals on either side, I think we all have a common goal. And I think we all want what's best. We just have different visions of how to get there.
Yeah. And
I think
that's what politics is. It's science problem solving.
Yeah. But as for backing up to leftist culture and the whole anti-man thing.
You were saying choice earlier.
It's really a lot about choice, and it's about, for men, I know I would love to see men who can be vulnerable if they want to and can be in touch with their more feminine side and not be looked down upon by society. And I saw this really interesting post somewhere that was talking about how, you know, superheroes, and there are female superheroes who are just as strong as the male superheroes.
Like Captain Marvel is stronger than Thor, and everybody knows it. But
right, but if a young boy,
that's gonna be a soundbite.
if a young boy wants to be like Captain Marvel, suddenly he's like a little gay boy, right? Suddenly he's like, he's being made fun of. But why should young boys have to only like male superheroes? Why can't they want to be like Superwoman, like, you know, Wonder Woman, like Captain Marvel? Why can't they want to be like that when they're just as strong? Why can't they look up to those characters? Where females, as a young girl, I could look up to Captain America and Thor and want to be like them, and that was never a problem. But when little boys want to be like Superwoman, suddenly it's an issue. And that was something that struck me a little bit, because it's like, wow, like why do we look down upon boys who want to be like girls? Why is that still an issue? Why is that still a problem?
Well, I have a theory of why. We still think, wow, I'm gonna really sound like a radical feminist, but this is the facts.
Yeah,
this is what's real. Since the beginning of time, men have been the protectors. Men have been the heads of the house.
Yeah,
and they're the executive decision makers. That's just the way it's been, and it's been their life for so long that we know that women can do everything that men can.
Right.
I believe that. I know that. My mom is so much more organized than my dad. My dad would be like in a dump right now if it wasn't for my mom. But of course there's differences, and God made us that way. And it's funny how it all worked out. Or it doesn't work out in a lot of ways, but let's just not go there. Well, we view women as under men because that's the way it has been. Yeah. So that's, I would believe, why.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We look up to Thor, but we don't look up to Wonder Woman. Right. Because Wonder Woman, because Thor's the man, he's got to be more powerful, right? Wrong.
Yeah.
Well, so I guess I'm somewhat of a feminist myself, and I'm just kidding.
No, I absolutely believe that you are, even if you don't want to call yourself that. Even if that's something that you choose not to identify as, I do believe that as long as you believe that men and women should be equal, you are a feminist.
They are equal.
Right.
They are equal. We don't...
as we've just discussed, we're not really seen as equal by society yet, even as much as we think that we are.
We never will be.
I believe that we can get there.
We've been this way for a long time, and that is... I think that's part of the reason why, but... in my opinion, since God made us to depend on each other, to say that one is less than the other is ignoring what is inherently true. Which is, if we depend on each other, then how are we not equal? Right. How does 50 and 50 not equal 100?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, that was beautiful.
All right. That's always been my belief. It always will be.
Yeah. Sorry to break it to you, but you're a feminist.
I'm not a feminist. Here's why. To call me a feminist would say that would be incorrect, because feminists believe that women, they believe these things like the wage gap. They believe these things like that like rape culture. They believe these things like, I don't know, that all men are evil. Okay, like huge generalizations like that.
I am a feminist. I do identify as a feminist.
That, yeah.
And I, like I said, I manspread. I have no problem with manspreading. I don't see what the problem is. I've never seen what the problem is. I don't think that men are evil.
But these radical feminists do. But
that's the problem with radical feminism that I've stated, is it isn't feminism. You can't, if you're calling yourself a radical feminist, you're not a feminist. That's what it boils down to. And that's where the problem lies, is people don't want to identify as feminist because they don't want to be aligned with those beliefs that you just stated.
Screaming.
And that's kind of unfair. if I'm being honest, because there are feminists like myself who do believe, the same things that you believe, and to have that separation due to like the radical feminists, it's sad.
Sad, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like back when there was real feminism, when we were really fighting for women's equal rights, did you know in World War II, you'll like this, there's a movie about it. It had Tom Hanks in it, where the women, because the men were away fighting war in World War II, they were fighting the Nazis, saving the world from the Nazis. The women were back home, and because all the men were gone, they played baseball.
Yeah.
They kept the Major League Baseball going.
Yep.
Yep, it really
That's
happened.
awesome.
And there's this whole movie about it, and they got inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame. There's this whole hallway. Now, I would love to see it. I want to go there so bad. But to say that 50 and 50 doesn't equal 100, God created us dependent on one another. We are equal inherently. So that is leftist culture. It's a culture of choice. It's a culture of choosing, and it's a culture of non-discrimination.
Right.
Right culture, I would say, is a culture of, well, we have these choices, but what is right and what is wrong? And we, on the right, we have these ideals that we follow, these ideals that we believe are right. Most of them are actually based on Judeo-Christian values, but the left sees that, but they also see everything else. But we say this is right and this is wrong, and the left says everything is right. And I think that is the inherent difference. Would you agree or would you disagree?
I don't know. I do think that I don't know, because to say that I don't believe that on the left we think that all choices are right. I love that left-right thing there.
Yeah.
Because we have a problem with people who choose to
take
discriminate.
the worst possible choice.
Right.
Yeah.
I think there are boundaries. I think there are
Right.
limits
Okay.
to choice that leftist culture, is trying to
Blur.
I'm sorry?
The leftist culture is trying to blur.
Right. You could choose to discriminate and to say things about, people who are gay or people who are transgender or people who are different from you, and that could be your choice, but that doesn't mean that we support that. And so yes, leftist culture is largely about choice,
Okay.
but it is also about ensuring that
all voices are heard.
right,
Ensuring that nobody's left out.
right. I think it's about
A chance. A seat at the table.
right.
Okay.
And it is a lot about being heard, and it is a lot about protecting minorities.
Okay.
And if your choices are harming someone, whether that be emotionally, physically, whatever it may be, then that's where, we draw the line in terms of choice.
Okay.
And so I think, everyone has a moral, compass, right from wrong, whether you left, right, whatever it is. Obviously there are outliers. Oh my gosh. There are outliers, but in terms of, looking at right versus left,
Would you agree with what I said? That leftist culture of choice, the right is the culture of what choice?
Okay, yeah, I could see that. I think, to me, the right wants to be able to say whatever they want to say without repercussion, right?
So does everyone. Okay, but yeah.
Fairly,
Yeah,
yeah.
continue.
Generally. But I also believe that they want to limit choice based off of what they believe personally. And I, as a leftist, don't believe that that's okay to limit someone's choice based off of individual beliefs.
Okay.
Because, it is the right that tends to be more, gay marriage is bad, and who are you as an individual
to say that?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll end with this. I heard places, and I thought about it, and Shapiro helped me think about it. But to me, I see it as this: the left is human nature. Mm-hmm. The right is human conscious. The left is human nature in the sense that if we were cavemen, when we were cavemen, we chose everything. We had every choice to make. But as we progress as a society, we were like, hold up, chief. What's right? What should I do here? What will make me popular? What will make me unpopular? Is killing somebody really a good thing to do, or can I just ask them? Can I just ask them for their crops? And I think as we became more rational, that's where right culture began to emerge. Leftism is a belief in human nature. Right is against human nature. It's against us as human beings to be Republicans, to be conservatives. It's not natural. But there's these two different schools of thought. What do you want to make a choice, or do you want to have the choices? So let's end it there. That got really philosophical. But I'm so glad that I was able to have you on. It's so interesting just to have these conversations. It went way deeper than I thought it would. Mm-hmm. Way further than I thought it would. I'm glad that it did. It's gonna make some really good content. I hope you guys really enjoyed listening to this. Have a more perfect day.